Welcome back to Born for This Stories, where we speak the truths no one told us, so you don't have to carry this alone. Today's story sits at the intersection of grief and gratitude, expectation and surrender, the place where so many medical parents quietly live. Marcia is a mother of 5 who has walked through infertility, adoption, unexpected diagnoses, and the arrival of her daughter Maggie. Born with a limb difference, after 14 years of believing pregnancy wasn't possible. Her journey offers a tender look at anticipatory grief, at the resilience that grows when life keeps reshaping our expectations, and at the deep healing that happens, sometimes slowly, sometimes in a way we never saw coming.
Our journey is so unique.
Yeah.
But we going through and having, and I'll explain better, but having adopted children that were disabled and medically complex, and then giving birth to a child that's disabled and medically complex and then combining those two worlds has just been huge. And obviously I'm still in the beginning stages of it. She's about to be 5 months. But just adding that level into it, because we've been doing this. So we have 5 kids. My eldest is 16, almost 17, 15, almost 16, and then 13, almost 12, and then my 5-month-old.
Wow.
And so we've been doing medical complexity for 13 years.
Wow.
My eldest 2 are healthy, and but our oldest 4 are adopted through foster care. The older 2 are a sibling group, healthy, typically developing kiddos. My 3rd child, Noah, was placed with us. And as the caseworker walked away, she was like, "Oh, by the way, his mom mentioned something about his heart. I think he needs some sort of like ultrasound." And I was like,
"What?
Like, that's a big, like, he's a baby. This is a 4-month-old. That's a big deal." She was like, "Yeah, just run him up to the hospital and, go see what they say." And I'm like, you can't just run somebody up to the hospital. And anyway, so that was my introduction to the pediatric hospital, pediatric everything. He is admitted to the ICU. He has a bicuspid aortic valve, so he has congenital heart disease with stenosis and regurgitation. He has a couple holes in his heart, and he was later diagnosed with autism, some genetic mutations, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and mast cell disease.
All of
So it's just
those.
this and they're often found together. It's a connective tissue issue. And so it's often found together. But unfortunately for him, because he's autistic, a lot of it wasn't diagnosed until later in life, because a lot of the things in the beginning they blamed on behaviors and they blamed on sensory.
Sure.
And we were like, "No, I really think something else is going on. I really think something else is going on." And so it took us many years to get all of his diagnoses, and we're still wrapping our heads around. Just all of those things are just very fluctuating, good days, bad days, how to treat, what to do. And so that has been a journey.
Yeah.
And so we had him for a year, and then our daughter was placed with us as respite, which respite is when you just are like babysitting another foster family's kiddo for them to in our case, the dad was having surgery. He was having sinus surgery. And so it was just literally supposed to be like a weekend.
Wow.
And come to find out, the dad ended up having a brain infection, like a sinus infection, like went to his brain. It was a huge thing. And so they were like, "Oh, can you keep her another week?" Another week turned into a month. And they were like, "Oh, by the way, she's got a doctor's appointment. Can you take her to a doctor's appointment?" And I started kind of like just getting to know her, obviously caring for a child.
Sure.
She was 4 months old at the time. And I was like, "I feel like there's something else going on." Again, I had just kind of started dabbling into the medical world with my son.
Yeah.
And I was like, "I feel like there's something else going on." I happened to be at the cardiologist with my son, and I was wearing her. And I mentioned to the doctor, like, "Hey, look, when you tap her foot, it shakes." And the doctor was like, "That's not a good thing. Like, that's not what it's like. That's not good." And I was like, "Oh, well, it's okay. We're going to see neurology next week." And again, I didn't know the history. I didn't know what all was going on, because I'm just, the babysitter. So come to find out, she was diagnosed with a spinal cord tumor that consumed 80% of her spinal cord.
Oh my God.
Yeah, massive tumor, ran from her brainstem down to T11, and she was immediately admitted to the ICU, emergency surgery, started chemo, the whole thing. And
Oh,
so
wow.
we now had these two medically fragile kiddos and had to make a decision. Are we going to follow through? Are we going to adopt them? What are we going to do? And we really felt called to them. We really felt it placed in our heart that this is what we were supposed to do. And
Absolutely.
so that's how we got our four kiddos.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and then 14 years later, we gave birth to our daughter, our youngest, our
Yeah.
newest addition.
Oh my goodness. What?
What an
Oh,
incredible story, Audrey.
yeah. And a whirlwind.
What are the
Yes, we always
statistical chances of this all happening? Like,
so so what's really crazy is my daughter, so her tumor is very common in adults. She had a pilocytic astrocytoma, and I'm sure you've heard of astrocytoma, very
Yeah.
common in adults,
Yeah.
but they're generally in the brain.
Yeah.
In adults, it's one of the most, I think it is, don't quote me, but I think it's one of the most common adult brain tumors. Depending upon their grade, they can be cancerous or not cancerous. Grades 1 and 2 are generally not cancerous. Grade 3 and above are cancerous. And then there are spinal cord tumors. It happens.
Sure.
It's not unheard of, but in kids, it's really unheard of.
Yeah.
At the time, so we live in Houston. She's treated at Texas Children's, largest children's hospital in the country. And at the time when she was diagnosed and treated, she was the only spinal cord tumor patient they had.
Oh, wow.
Um, and since then, I think we've met like three or four at Texas Children's. We've met other people through communities online and stuff like that.
Sure.
But people with true, pediatric spinal cord tumors, we only know like five. So
Yeah.
it's pretty rare.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. And no indication, obviously, when you, like you said, you just had her for like technically a few days and then one thing turned into the next. And that's a big
Yeah.
decision. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the legal system and throwing all that into the mix. And
Yeah.
we were young and, naive and thought, we can do this. I mean, we have,
Yeah.
and we don't regret it for a second. But
Yeah.
if we had been older, I don't think we would have made the same decision.
It's probably why it was placed upon you at the time that it was.
Right.
happened
Right.
for a
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah. It
Right. Yeah.
sounded like she needed you guys and that support and you jumped in. You did it.
Yep. Yep. And that's what CBS said. Like they were like, well, you've already got one, so you kind of already know the system and how to work it and that kind of stuff. And we were like, okay, sure, if that's the way you want to look at it.
So can I ask in that regard, and like you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but like you adopt these children and they have medical complexities, and is that just all of a sudden like all your responsibility because you adopt them? Like
You mean as far as like the state goes?
the state, like the financial commitment to
Yeah. So
that?
so we live in Texas, and
Yeah.
Texas doesn't really support the disabled community or CPS or foster care.
Okay.
So in the state of Texas, because we adopted through foster care, so they both met criteria for, so in Texas, they have to be 8 years old or older, a part of a sibling group, or a minority, and two or older to qualify for post-adoption assistance
Okay.
or disabled. And so they both qualified under, and it has to be lifelong disability. So we had to get doctors to write notes explaining that they would be disabled for life.
Yeah.
And people hear it and they think, oh, you must be getting so much money. We get $545 a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And
Right.
they do, and they do qualify for Medicaid, but we don't qualify for SSI. We
Yeah.
don't qualify for anything else unless we qualified like income wise, which we
Sure.
don't. So
Sure.
no, in the state of Texas, I know it is different in other states, but in Texas, you get very, very minimal. And so we actually expedited my daughter's adoption because we wanted to put her on our private insurance.
Yeah.
Because at the time when you're going through chemo and cancer, if you've ever known anyone who's gone through it, there's lots of scans, lots of tests, all
Sure.
kinds of stuff. And with Medicaid, you have to have prior authorizations for all of those. So like if we would show up to the doctor and she needed blood, like a blood transfusion,
Yeah.
um, a lot of times the Medicaid patients would have to get admitted to the hospital for it just to get insurance to pay for it. But when you have private insurance, you don't have to have those prior authorizations, and it gives them a little bit of time to like work through it.
Mm.
And so we were able to expedite her adoption. So she was placed with us in July. the end of July, like July 26th, and her adoption was finalized in March,
Wow.
which is really fast for foster care. But that's just because the judge expedited everything so that she could be put on our private insurance.
Yeah. Wow. That's a whirlwind all in itself, trying to navigate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. And then, okay, so with all of that, is she like in the clear now? Is she in remission?
Yeah, so she just had her 10-year scan 2 months ago, and everything's still stable. So she was not ever declared NED or no evidence of disease because there's still remnants of tumor inside of
Okay.
her. But she did chemo,
Yeah.
and that stopped the growth. And so, but she was left with severe spinal cord injury. So when they went in to take the tumor out, they had to take out two vertebrae. They had to take out T5 and T6.
Oh,
And just going into the spinal cord alone, just obviously cutting the spinal
yeah,
cord causes a spinal cord injury.
sure.
And so she is a partial paraplegic, if that's a thing. So she has pretty much no feeling chest and below,
Yeah.
but she can stand some. She can stand to transfer. So she can
Okay.
stand to transfer. So she does have some tone in her legs.
Yeah.
So she can stand to transfer. She can stand to get in and out of her bed, in and out of her wheelchair. And she can move her legs a little bit. She can move the right side better than the left side.
Hmm.
But she has full use of her arms and up. But because of where her tumor was, right here
Yeah.
in like the middle of her chest, so that controls your breathing, that
Yep.
controls your digestion, and then that controls your bladder and your bowel. So
Yep.
she has severe, so she's catheterized.
Yep.
She's incontinent. She has a feeding tube, and then she has severe hypoventilation, so she doesn't inhale and exhale well enough.
Yeah.
So she uses a ventilator at night to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Well, bless you for taking care of her and giving her what she needs.
So how long
She's amazing.
Yeah.
or how much time did you spend with her before the adoption took place? Were you fully bonded to the child before all this happened? Or I don't know the process, so I'm just curious on
Yeah,
how
yeah.
that and the
So
emotions, like you got thrown right into it.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So generally in the state of Texas, you have to spend 6 months with the child before
Okay.
you're allowed to adopt. But it's kind of crazy. So, like I said, so we were babysitting for my friend. And so our caseworker was at our house visiting Noah, my son, and she was like, "Hey, my friend's kid is in the hospital today. She's having surgery." And so she was like, "Do you want to pray for her?" So we prayed for her. And so I knew of her.
Hmm.
And then when they brought her to me for the babysitting, my caseworker, they have to come every month. And my caseworker was due to come back, and she came back, and I was holding Hannah in my lap, and I looked at her and I said, "She's going to be my daughter." And
Oh.
she was like, she has three other siblings. They're all half siblings, but she was like, she has three other siblings. She, was doing great in that home. She was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, no, she's going to be my daughter. I just had this feeling.
Mm.
And the crazy part of it too is that, so the way she ended up permanently with us was I was actually at a visit with her it was her bio mom and her bio dad, and I had her, and then her other siblings were there visiting mom. And the way it works, like when there's different dads, is Hannah was still back with her dad, but the mom had come out because she was with the other kiddos.
Hmm.
And the mom came out and she was crying, and she came up to me, and she was like, "Thank you for taking care of her." Da, da, da. I was like, "Oh, no problem." Like, I'm just babysitting.
Yeah.
And when they came out, and I like took her from the caseworker announced in the room, mind you, this is just like a CPS office in Houston. So like just imagine massive room, massive, lots of people. And the CPS officer or caseworker said, "All right, tell her goodbye. You're not seeing her for a while." And I was like,
Whoa.
what's going on? And she was like, "Well, they both failed their drug screens. This is their sixth time to fail. So we're moving towards adoption." And
Oh my God.
I'm pro reunification. I am pro, like, I am just here filling in the gap.
Yeah.
We fostered 9 other kids that all were reunified. So I was really disappointed in the way the caseworker handled this situation, the way she just announced it in front of everybody.
Mm.
And this mom and dad just broke down and lost it. I actually still have a really great relationship with her bio mom. She texted me yesterday. Um, just really encouraging her, still working on her and her sobriety and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But so I just felt really called to them and their family and their situation. Both of Hannah's parents were both products of CPS. They were both in and out of the system. Her dad was a victim from Hurricane Katrina that got abandoned and dumped in
Gosh.
Houston. Yeah, it's just a horrible, heartbreaking story. And it's just like shows you system failure after system failure.
Yeah.
And we just firmly believe in like breaking those cycles and coming alongside these families and loving on them so that they can be successful. And so she actually has a job now. She just got out of rehab, um, fourth or fifth time. But
Yeah.
we're
Trying. Yeah.
hopeful. And she doesn't have any other kiddos. And so she still stays in contact with me and Hannah's not cognitively able to understand it.
Yeah.
She just knows, oh, that's Valerie, mom's friend. And she'll FaceTime her and talk to her, which just encourages her. Because for Hannah, it would be like just like Hannah talking to y'all. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
Hannah's just kind and go lucky and wants to tell you about Minnie Mouse in the latest episode of Gabby Dollhouse,
Oh,
so
yeah.
she's
Yeah.
developmentally like 4 or 5, and so it doesn't quite make sense to her. And so yeah, so we were definitely bonded, and then immediately being thrown into ICU and all of that, just they always say medical trauma is like the most bonding trauma you can have.
Yeah.
And so that just threw us together. And honestly, it was crazy because it was the first time I'd ever been away from my boys since they had been placed with us. My husband and I had never been away overnight or anything. So it was my first time to be away from my boys. And we all just obviously were thrown into the medical world very quickly.
Yeah, for sure. And like in a very intense way, it's not like it was quote unquote something like minor that you went to the doctor to, for one time and then everything's all good. You're in it. You're in it to win it.
Yeah.
Long haul. So it's very interesting, your story and how it started with adoption, but turned into medical complexity. And now you have your own,
Yes.
and that's a
Yeah. And so
whole
that
nother
story is
story.
just as crazy. So last year, about it exactly a year ago, took a pregnancy. We homeschool. This is our homeschool room. I was in a room
Love it.
homeschooling my kids, and I
Love it.
randomly had to vomit, which is very unlike me. I'm not a
Yeah.
nauseous person, and I went
Yeah.
running out of the room. And my husband works from home. And I went upstairs and I was like, I just threw up. And he's like, okay, do I need to take off? Like, I'll come down, take care of the kid. And I'm like, no, look, it's like 8 in the morning and I vomited. And he's like, he's still not,
Yeah.
we've been married 14 years.
Yeah.
Like, this has never been a thing. And I go, I'm pregnant. And he's like, no. And I was like, go to Walgreens right now.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like, no. He's like, we'll just do it later. Just like DoorDash it. And I'm like, no, now. And so he goes to Walmart to pee on the stick, and we're
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, can this be real? Can this really be real?
Sure.
Um, and of course now I'm 37, so I'm like geriatric.
Yeah.
And so I had to go into the high risk doctor, all this. So find out I'm pregnant. Everything is going completely beautifully and amazing. I have hypertension. I am overweight. I am old, and the baby is doing fabulous.
Yeah.
Like everything that they think could go wrong, they're doing all the extra tests. I had to do the glucose test twice. I had to do everything perfect, fine, every single lab work, everything. So we get to our 20-week ultrasound. We had done genetic testing. Everything came back normal. But the genetic testing said it's a girl. And then when they went to go do the anatomy scan, they couldn't see genitals. And so they said at 24 weeks, why don't you come back and we'll just check it again, which I was like, okay, great. Another ultrasound. I get to see
Yeah.
her again,
Yeah.
Um, went in for the 24-week ultrasound. It was the day after my birthday. My husband went in with me and we can see the look on the ultrasound tech's face. Like she
Mm.
just keeps going and then she looks at the screen and she looks and she's going and look and look. And she goes, I'm going to go out and I'm going to print your other ultrasound out and I'm going to talk to a few people and I'm going to come back.
Oh
And I kind of
gosh.
just grabbed her by the arm and I said, listen, this isn't my first rodeo. Can you please just tell me what's wrong? And she was
Yeah.
like, I can't. And I was like,
Gosh.
no, you can.
Yeah.
She was like, no, I'm getting somebody. And so, of course, my husband and I sit there like 15 minutes, just like we both are thinking she's dead. Like, like they can't find a heartbeat, right?
Yeah.
And so we're just sitting there, panicking. And my husband's like just sitting there silently crying. And I'm just full on panic. And the doctor walks back in and she does one little wait, like, and I'm like, I know you didn't actually see anything when you just did that. Like that was all fake. And she looks at me and she says, "Your daughter doesn't have a leg." And I was like, "Oh, she's alive?" And she's like, "Yeah, she doesn't have a leg. Like she won't walk." And I was like, "Okay."
I was
Like
sitting
I
here
was like, "Is there a
panicking
hip?"
for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
And I was like, "Does she have a hip?" And she goes, "Why do you want to know if she has a hip?" And I said, "Well, because if she has a hip, she can take a prosthetic better." And mind you, she has no knowledge of my other kiddos, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I'm like, "Does she have a hip?" And so we used to live in Waco, Texas, and I worked with an organization there called No Limitations, and I was a coach for a football team. And there was a girl on our football team who had the same condition that my daughter was just born with. I didn't know that at the time,
Yeah.
but and she was missing her leg and like the full leg, and but she had a prosthetic. And I knew that she had had numerous hip surgeries because there were just issues with the prosthetic and the hip. So I
Hmm.
was like, "Is there a hip? Is there a hip?" And she's like, "Well, I don't know." And so she goes and scans again and she's like, "Yeah, there's a hip." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "But her heart's fine, her brain's fine, like
Yeah.
everything looks
Yeah.
fine." And she's like, she literally grabbed me like by the arm, like you understand that your daughter's, and I'm like, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah, but you don't know what
And
I've been through.
so, right. And
Oh,
so my husband eventually like pipes in and is like, "Our daughter had a spinal tumor. Our son has a heart condition. Da 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 da." And so the doctor's like, "Okay." She literally was like, "Do you want? I'm going to call in a psychology consult for you. Like, do you want me to call a chaplain?" And we're like, "No, we're
no.
fine. Like, this
Yeah.
is a miracle. We never expected to get pregnant. Like, this, we got this." And so, of course, we have to go. We were just like at a satellite hospital, like out in Katy,
Yeah.
and they were like, "No, now you have to go in to go deliver, at Texas Children's, this, and this. And we have to go for MRI and way more ultrasounds." I had like ultrasounds every week. And that's when we ended up finding out she actually didn't have a kidney either. She only had
Oh,
one
wow.
kidney. And then she was born with what's called a cloacal anomaly, where the connection between her kidney, her bladder, her urethra, and her colon wasn't perfectly formed.
Mm,
Um, and so and it's the thing this the strangest thing about it all is that everything with Maggie, that's our new baby's name, everything with Maggie has been structural.
yeah.
And so it's very clear cut.
Yeah.
This is what's wrong. Um, but with our other two kiddos, with a heart kiddo and a neuro kiddo with seizures and
Hmm.
developmental delay and all that stuff, like you can't, there's no like blood test that you can do. There's no image that you can do that's like, here's what's wrong, here's where
Yeah.
they're at. And so
Yeah.
it's just been two very different worlds. And like, even with her limb difference, like there's a protocol. Like if you're missing from here up, we do this. If you're missing from here up, we like it's just very clear cut. And so those two different worlds has been just absolutely mind blowing. I want to say something so much more prophetic than mind blowing, but
Yeah.
it's just been so interesting to process how different it's been. And then also just to the difference between 12 years, from when our other kiddos were diagnosed and when she's
Oh,
diagnosed, and how
sure.
medical advancements are just insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we welcomed Maggie into our family in July. I got to experience the NICU for the first time.
Mm,
My other kiddos came to me after their NICU experiences, so I'm now officially NICU mom.
yeah.
Um, Not my most favorite experience.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody, I mean, I think a lot of people come out of the NICU saying there were really great people there, but I don't think anybody comes out of it like such a great experience,
Sure.
just missing so much
Yeah.
with your baby.
Yeah. Those first
Um,
moments.
yeah. And
Mhm.
I didn't think about that ahead of time. Like I didn't think about how hard that would be.
Yeah.
And it was a lot harder than I realized.
Sure.
And so yeah, so now we've had that experience, and it's just so different. And it's also just very different too, because if you looked at Hannah, you don't always know right away that she's disabled, especially if she's just like sitting in a chair or
Yeah.
something at a restaurant. But then you look at Maggie and there's no leg there,
Yeah.
and it's so much more obvious. And so it's one of the strange things. Like I was at Hobby Lobby yesterday, and an old lady walked up to me and was like, "Where's her leg?" And I was like, "I don't know."
What?
Like,
I can't believe people. Oh, I forgot it at home. Like, what do you say to that? I
so
I can't
I
believe people
asked,
have to
so
ask that.
I asked them the limb difference group. I was like, what do y'all say? And a lot of them said, once their kids get older, they give their kids like lines to say. So like this is a thing. So like people do it all the time because people in this group are like, oh yeah, my kid says this. And so a lot of people said to like say something funny, like, I don't know, let me find it. Like, oh, I must have put it in the diaper bag, or like just
Oh
funny
my,
things like that. One of my friends suggested that like I carry a baby doll leg in the diaper bag and I pull it out. Oh, sorry, I forgot to put it on. Let me put it on. And I'm just not that bold. Like I'm just like,
yeah,
oh, she was born like this,
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Oh
I'm not
wow.
that bold.
Yeah,
I
yeah, I
just
get
can't.
it.
I'm floored that people ask that question. I
So the lady yesterday, so Maggie's 5 months. The lady yesterday was the sixth person.
Wow.
not that uncommon of a thing. I I just can't believe that. That's crazy.
And one of the times I was wearing her. And so like I was wearing her and she was facing me. And so
Hmm.
they could see one leg here. And the lady
Yeah.
actually came up to me and she put her hand inside the carrier because she thought like the leg was stuck or something. So like this lady essentially grabbed my boob because
Wow.
she
Yeah,
stuck
yeah,
her
yeah,
hand in the
yeah,
carrier. And I
yeah.
was like, what are you doing? And she was like, I was trying to find your baby's leg. And my husband, of course, says you should have said, well, if you find it, let me know. But of course, I was just like, she doesn't have one. Please stop touching me.
Yeah. Well, I do know,
Wow.
like, from having kiddos, like, people are very passionate about just like, I mean this in a loving way, like how they are in the car seat, how they are in the baby carrier, and they will come up to you
Yeah,
and say, like, you're not doing that right, or that's not right.
yeah,
However, with that being said, I think there should be some compassion and some awareness and thought prior to addressing some of these scenarios because you don't know what someone is going through. You don't know the scenario or the situation. And of course, we want safety, but it also is like that could have really upset you. And
yeah,
and I'm not saying that it didn't, but like you could have broken down in that moment and been like, you don't even understand what I'm going through. Like, I have my baby and she doesn't have a leg, and you just triggered me because you
right.
felt the need to be like, how did you not put your baby in that carrier, right? And you're like, well, I did. That's just none of your
Yeah,
business.
And in her defense, though, she might have just thought she was helping.
I know.
You're a new mom she sees, then you might not know that the baby's knee is tucked up backwards or something because you've got four different things going on at once. So,
Yeah, I
but
see both
right.
sides, but
that shit's
No,
wild.
yeah, I get it. I agree. I
mhm.
I see both sides, and I think that's just why it's so important to always like assess like,
Yeah,
what's going on, and make it
yeah.
before you jump into it, try to make some more observation, try
Hmm.
to see before, because yeah, I'm a very open and honest and caring and laid back. I'm very laid back. But yeah, some people aren't, and so I don't
Yeah,
think it would go as well.
for sure. For sure.
One thing that I think is unique, obviously, about this story is we've heard a lot of different stories now with people with different severities of situations that they've gone through with their families, but everyone goes to at the diagnosis how traumatic it was, how they were kind of in fight or flight, and they immediately jumped onto Dr. Google and spent the next 3 days not sleeping going through that. It's quite the contrary, it sounds like with you, but there had to have been with some of these situations, some of that. Can you kind of speak to that and what I mean? Everybody Googles, like,
Right. Actually,
but
okay, so when they did my daughter's biopsy, so the way it works in the hospital, like whatever team is on, so like the oncology team that was on, just happened to be a blood oncologist, like leukemia, lymphoma, that kind of stuff, and she had a solid tumor, right? So this doctor comes by, so they've done the biopsy, we've been in the hospital 15 days, and he comes by and he says, "Hey, we got the biopsy back." He was like, "Listen, I'm not a solid tumor guy," and he was like, "I'm going to read you the report. I'm going to give you a copy of the report." And he literally looked at me and said, "Please don't Google it." And I was like,
But I'm
"You
going.
realize that's the first thing I'm going
Yeah,
to do?"
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
how do you say? And he said because it's really rare, it doesn't happen in kids, da 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 da. But the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to connect with other parents and other families.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think maybe because I had been fostering for 4 years at that point, and I was really connected with other foster parents, and I saw how much that helped that journey, that I immediately felt this draw to get connected with other families of kiddos with similar diagnoses.
Yeah.
Um, And so I did, this was back in 2012, the iPhone and, newer iPhone. And
Mm-hmm.
the first thing I did was Google it. And it has a really low survival rate for the grade that she had. So she had a grade 3. And it has a really low survival rate. And that was one of the things that he said. He said, but we got 80% of the tumor. We got it very early, and it hadn't really attached too much to the spinal cord yet. And so he was like, because of that, that changes everything. And so, I did, but I will say the greatest difference is that I had no ability to understand how much it was going to impact her life.
Yeah.
I understood that she had a tumor. I understood that her chances of survival were really low, but I couldn't correlate that to what it means to raise a disabled child.
Sure.
So for example, immediately after, a year after her diagnosis and treatment and stuff, my husband got a job opportunity to move to Waco and work for his alma mater and his dream job. And we bought a house there, and we bought a house with a sunken living room, and it was a ranch style house with multi levels.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't even phase us that that was a bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just showed, like, so we had no idea. And she was developmentally delayed at that point. Like, I don't even think she was crawling yet. And she was 2. And we still, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
like, we just didn't know. Whereas now with Maggie, with missing a leg, we've already converted, Hannah and Maggie share a bathroom. We've already converted their bathroom to be accessible. And we're already talking about pulling up the rest of the carpet in our house. There's only a little bit of carpet left, but we're already talking about pulling up the rest of the carpet just because
Yeah.
with two girls with disabilities, it would be, very different. Carpet's just not ideal. And
Right.
so that I think is the difference, is that we had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we were more thrown into it, just hoping she would live.
Yeah.
And so we didn't care, whatever
Sure.
comes of it, we just want her to live. And she did, and she's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad that she, obviously, like, we're glad that she did. Like, that sounds like so, like, duh. But at the same time, like, this journey, I'm sure, has been long. And it's just, it is good to have those, to hear those wins, to hear those other stories, especially in something that is so rare, and to give connection and to share with other families and give them some hope. So
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that you're sharing your experience with us. And then you got it going on. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So I know, like, we had, when I was reading through some of your intake form too, there were a couple of things that, like, really stood out to me. Like, one of them was the support, or, finding those right avenues of support through other families and things. And where did you access those groups the most? Like, how did you find those people?
Yeah, so I have found through our 12 years with this that most people either have family support or they don't have family support.
Yeah.
Like, it don't really feel like there's an in between.
Sure. Agreed.
Um, and our family loves and adores our kids. They care for them, but they just don't mentally have the capacity to process all that our kids need,
Yeah.
what that means, and how to support us through that. Um, and so they're kind of like what I would say, like, fair weather grandparents. Like,
Mhm.
we see them a couple times a year.
Yeah.
They give gifts, and that's about it. And so we don't have that family support. I'm an only child, and then my husband has one brother. And his brother's single, in his 40s, and just kind of living his best bachelor life, and
Yeah.
doesn't really like
Yeah.
kids, so that's that side of it. So, actually, the way I got introduced to support, my my very best people. So I had Hannah at the infusion center. She was getting chemo. She was an infant, and I had a stroller, and she had an IV going to her. She had a port,
Yeah.
and I needed to go to the bathroom. And chemo makes you very nauseous. And so one of
Yeah.
the things is you're supposed to hold them while they're getting it. So that way, like, obviously if it's an infant, because if they're laying down in the stroller and they vomit, they can aspirate.
Sure.
I had to go to the bathroom bad. I had been waiting for a nurse to come back by to hold her so I could go to the bathroom. And there was a family next to us that was very loud, very just happy, just laughing. And they had a
Mhm.
daughter that was a teenager, bald. She was blind. She had a cane, and they just seemed like the nicest people in the world. And I just had been sitting there by myself, and they had all kinds of support, like all kinds of friends and all this stuff. And I was just sitting there by myself holding this baby. And so I literally just walked up to them and was like, "Hey, can you hold her? I really have to pee." And they were like, "Yeah, sure." And the bathroom was right there. I just went to the bathroom really quick and came back. And I was like, "Okay, I can take her back." And she goes, "I don't know what makes you think I'm gonna give her back." And
Oh,
I was like, and we were just instant friends, just instant friends. And the way it works, like with at least the Texas Children's, I don't know how it works at other hospitals, is like all the solid tumors get their infusions on one day, all the blood cancers get their infusions on another day. So we ended up having chemo every single Thursday together. And we just grew to be, the closest of friends. And she actually is the one who introduced me. So for oncology, there's something called Momcology, and it's a national organization that supports families of oncology, pediatric oncology kiddos. And from there, I found, spinal cord tumor groups, I found G-tube groups, I found, and it just branched out from
yeah,
there. And that's just kind of where I really found, my people. And then I ended up, so my very best friend in the entire world, we had gone to church one morning. We were eating lunch at a Mexican restaurant in Waco, and I had a really bad headache. We were sitting in a booth. I had a really bad headache. So I was just kind of like sitting in the corner holding my head. And my son, who's autistic, was sitting next to me, jumping up and down, touching everything, doing all the stuff.
yeah,
And then Hannah is in her wheelchair at the end of the booth. And then my husband and my other two boys are on the other side. And all of a sudden, Noah jumps up and screams and points across the restaurant, "Mommy, there's a girl over there, and she has a G tube just like Hannah." And I'm like, "Shh, we don't
yeah,
point, we don't, like I said, I had a headache. I wasn't about to go talk to anybody, like, didn't want anything. So Noah sits down, calms down or whatever. And all of a sudden, my husband's kicking me under the table. And I'm like, "What? What?" And I look up, and this lady is standing there with her daughter in the wheelchair at my table. And she hands me a piece of paper and she says, "This is my phone number. My name's Amy. Our girls look to be the same age. We should be friends." And she walks out of the restaurant. And I am like, that was the weirdest interaction of my life. And my husband's like, "You're not actually going to call her, are you?" And I looked at the piece of paper, and it was written on a church bulletin. And I was like, well, they go to church. They must be good people, right?
no,
And so in my mind, I thought, no, there's no way I'm contacting this person. And then later in the day, I ended up texting her, and that was 9 years ago, and she's my very best friend in the world.
Mm.
Her daughter ended up going to be with Jesus in
Oh,
2021, and I was actually there with her as they turned off all the machines and everything. And yeah, she's my very best friend in the entire world. And so that's the way I found my people. My
yeah,
my it was just kind of divine intervention, but they both
yeah,
introduced me. So Amy's the one that introduced me to No Limitations in Waco, which is the nonprofit in Waco that I coached and worked with and did nonprofit work. And actually, Amy's the one that introduced me to Texas Parent to Parent, which is who I work for now, and got me introduced to them. And I serve on many boards and committees with them. And so that it's all been through people.
yeah,
And it was just, crazy meeting in a Mexican restaurant.
yeah, yeah. Oh,
That friendship was meant to be.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. I literally
Yes.
I teared up before you even said it. I was like, I know this is going to be like so good. And
Yeah.
that is like divine
Yeah.
intervention. And like we all need that support. And especially like with the scenario that you have, and you definitely need support and connection. And so do those other moms. So I'm very,
And
just a
I
blessing.
truly just thought that like nobody could get me. Like this is
Oh,
such
for
a unique,
sure.
this is so, and that's just how I felt. Like I just felt so isolated and depressed and alone, and like I didn't have
Yes.
family support. And like I said, like sitting at the hospital and seeing other people with support and other things like that, like I just felt so alone. And
Yeah.
then these people started talking to me and loving on me, and like they would text us, "Hey, how was that scan? Hey, what was her blood work? Hey, how's this? Hey, can I send you a meal?" And now like when my kiddos have surgery, when my kiddos are in the hospital, like that's what we do. Like there's a whole group of us, and like we send
Hmm.
each other coffee. And there's actually one friend of mine, our kiddos were in ICU at the same time last year, and they accidentally put us in the rooms next to each other. And the way it works at Texas Children's is there's 36 beds on the unit, and so there's two teams of doctors. And they were like, "Oh Lord, we can't have them on the same team." And so they literally changed. So like the first 16 rooms were her team, like team A, and then we were team B. And they like changed doctors for other kiddos just so that her and I's kids wouldn't be on the same team. because they were like, we can't do that. That's too much.
Oh,
And they joked around because we would just be sitting outside of our rooms, like talking to each other in the hallway. 'Cause they have rocking
yeah.
chairs in the hallway, and we would scoot our rock because you're not allowed to go into other people's rooms. And I think like both of our kiddos had I think they both had like UTIs or something. Like it wasn't contagious. Obviously, if they both had RSV or flu or something,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have
Yeah.
been going to each other's rooms.
Sure.
And we would sit outside in our rocking chairs talking to each other. And they were like, "Oh Lord, look who's out walking!" Because we'd go walk and get coffee together. And
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
those are our people.
Yeah,
We
for sure.
couldn't survive without them.
Yeah. Well, I almost feel like too, like there's this like unspoken like bond and almost like for lack of better terms, like sorority that you guys are part of because no, I didn't know that they do certain treatments on certain days and many of the moms that we've talked to have said, like there's only so many beds on this floor. Like the things that you guys know because of what you have to know and you go through is just like this secret society that you're part of. It's like the outsiders looking in have no idea. And I'm sure it is hard for certain people to understand and to relate, but I mean, I have all like the empathy for you and like support and like it's so nice that you found your people, but also like just know like there are outsiders too that like love and support you because it is so important to uplift you guys in what you're going through. It's not easy.
Yeah, I saw a post by Effie Parks. She's another disability blogger. She has a podcast, and she had said a post the other day. She said it's so impactful when you realize how much the medical team like means to you, like how
Mm.
much you're like, and it's crazy too. We went to see one of my son's doctors the other day, and my son could tell that he was kind of off, which Noah's autistic, and I feel like he can kind of read people way better than other people can.
Yeah.
And he literally said to him, "Hey, are you okay today?"
Yeah.
And the doctor turned and looked at him and was like, "No, my dad died last week. Thanks for
Mm.
asking." And it's
Mhm.
like, and so I think sometimes
Yeah.
too, because we see these medical professionals so often and we spend so much time with them. And
Yeah.
my kiddos get therapy at the hospital. So like we're literally at the hospital 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And so we see them
Yeah.
getting coffee, we see
Yeah.
them walking to their car, we see them in the hallways. And so we know what's going on in their life and they know what's
Yes.
going on in ours. And so this relationship that we have with them, while it's weird, you know,
Yeah.
it is what it is, and it's crazy how impactful our relationship with them is.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And not, I mean, I'm definitely not in like the hospital world and stuff, but being like a chiropractor and having a business and stuff, like when patients like know and they like say like, "Hey, are you okay?" Like, and they can see you in that moment, it is very heartfelt and it is very humbling because you care for those people and to know that it's reciprocated is a very special, very, very special thing. So
Yeah, he was
really
completely, he
appreciate
was
it.
like he
Hmm.
was like mid typing, and he was like
Yeah.
so blown away by it.
Yeah.
And that's just Noah. That's just his heart. That's
Love
just
it.
how he is. Like he can just
Yeah.
read people, and he's really good. And he's like, "I'm really sorry." And so then
Oh,
he wanted to write him a Christmas card. And
yeah.
the next week when we were up there,
Yeah.
I ran a Christmas card by his office. And
Hmm. Oh, I think that's amazing. And I know that that doctor values that so much. They're they become part of your family with
yep,
how frequently you have to be there. And
yep.
I know like when you were writing some stuff down too, I'm probably not going to describe it in the right way, so I hope you can speak upon this. Like you almost like it's like like you're the offense and you're also the quarterback and you have
Oh,
this whole team and like I think maybe you were getting somewhere to the point if I read it correctly like you almost envision like a space that you can have children like because you're juggling a lot between the three of them, like different providers,
yeah,
different specialties, like in a perfect world, it would be a little bit easier.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I always say if I had millions and millions of dollars and if I could, rewrite the system, and I am learning through talking to other parents and especially parents who lived across the country that different facilities are trying to move towards this. And I know it's the goal,
Yeah.
but things move so slow.
Yeah.
I'm like, come
Yeah.
on, let's get there.
I
But I
know.
think ideally for our kiddos, I think one of the things people don't realize is that, like, so for example, Hannah's got like 9 different specialists
Yeah.
and 3 therapists and an orthotist. And then she also has her DME company who, does her supplies. And then she has a
Yep.
dietitian. And none of those, so her specialists for us, most of them are all at the same hospital. They're not all at the same hospital, but most of them are at the same hospital. And even if they're not at the same hospital, they're all in the same computer system so they can communicate, right?
Sure.
But none of them actually sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times, one will be like, okay, I want to lower her calories. Okay, well, I want to increase her water. Okay, well, I'm concerned about her blood pressure, so I want to do this. But none of those people communicate with each other. They all tell that to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I have to be the one to go to cardio and say, hey, they want to increase her water. I have to go to endo and say, hey, they want to lower her calories. Hey, how is that going to affect the absorption of this med? Hey, oh,
Yeah.
not to mention pharmacy, add in pharmacy. And so there's this loss of continuity
Sure.
because, and then the heaviness that I have to carry of if I forget to mention something
Yeah.
to one person.
Oh, yeah.
We were at an appointment this week and we were walking out and I was like, oh, by the way, this lab came back and it was kind of low. And he was like, wait, what? Come back in, look it up. Oh, that kind of worries me. I want these other two labs done too. Because if I had forgotten to mention that, I mean, not that the lab wasn't in the computer and that he couldn't have seen it. There's so many things there.
Yeah.
So yeah, an ideal world would be a multidisciplinary team that's not only outpatient, but is also inpatient.
Yeah.
And it also connects with therapy and pharmacy and DME so that all these people are communicating. And
Yeah.
I feel like the burden on the caregiver would be significantly relieved,
Sure.
but I also feel like there would be fewer errors,
Yeah.
um, which could increase outcomes. And so
Sure.
those are my justifications for why, because I know that it would be really expensive.
Yeah.
And so those are my cost justifications, to
Yeah.
justify it. I have heard there are some facilities that are trying to move towards it.
Mhm.
Most facilities have a complex care team, but all of the facilities I've heard of, it's all outpatient. None of it's inpatient,
Yeah.
and they are not connected with the DME and they're not connected with the pharmacy unless you use the hospital pharmacy, which for us would be a 45-minute drive every time we go to the hospital. So,
Yeah.
or every time we need a medication. So that's not ideal. So yeah, some sort of way of that would be that is my dream.
It's a great dream. I mean, it's a whole team on the same team communicating, like round tabling it. Hey, today we have so and so, and let's talk about the case, like let's talk about it. Let's all be on the same page to get that patient the best care possible. Seems
Yeah.
seems like the only way. I know that's like a lot of mountains to move to get to that area, but that is something that I'm so thankful that you spoke upon because that's how things change. I mean, I know slowly but surely, but get the idea out there.
Yeah. Every meeting, everything I get invited to with the hospital system, I bring it up because I'm like, what can
Yeah.
we do to improve this?
Yeah. And, like you got to, I honestly don't know how you keep it straight with having all the kiddos at home and working and having so many specialists and so many things, because that would feel really crappy if, heaven forbid, you had an off day and forgot to mention something and it turned into something else, when ultimately you do want all of that, not all the responsibility, you want majority of responsibility to fall back on the provider that should be taking care of and recommending the right things. And I know we all have off days, but like that could make or break a situation for everybody.
For sure.
If you had an off day, if they
For
had an
sure.
off day. So yeah, unity would be most optimal.
But this
Ideal.
is
Yeah,
this is a very common thing we've seen too, though, is that
I'm
the
sure.
Yeah.
mother and father are definitely the biggest advocates,
Yeah.
and they often know what the child needs more so than the doctor, and they point the doctors in the right way or the right direction to check one more blood test or check this or that, and it leads to something
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
wouldn't
Yeah.
have been found without the parents, obviously, inputting that. So,
Yeah. And I just dream of a world where it's not on the parents anymore because the
Sure.
heaviness of that
Sure.
is for some families is unbearable.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know if you know about like the rates of abuse among disabled kiddos and the rates of, mortality. I think I read a study recently that in the state of Texas alone, there were 4 deaths. There's about 4 to 6 deaths a year from abuse from kiddos with medical complexities from caregiver burnout.
Oh, I mean, sadly, I mean, that's just blows my mind. I'm sure, that that does happen. And how do we change that? That's definitely a good
Right.
conversation to start having because it's a big burden to carry. And, like we have talked to other families, and even in our scenario, like our scenario is nothing as complex as like what you're going through. But no matter what, like the whole purpose of the movement too is that like you're supported and that your hard can still be hard, like it's still lifing, right? Like you still have to make hard decisions and change your life to support your kiddo, no matter like if it's for a small time frame or for their whole entire life. And burnout comes from that. So also like you are so right. Like how do we support the caregiver to prevent these things from happening? Because that should absolutely be preventable. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I always say, I'm very blessed. I'm very I don't even know the word, my husband works, he has a good job, we're well supported. And so we don't have those outside factors
Yeah.
adding in those extra burdens on top of it. And so other families that already had stuff going on, already had, difficult situations with, mom and dad and all of those things, legal situations, financial
Yeah. Yeah.
situations, whatever it can be, compounds those things and just increases the rates. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just kind of my plea with, legislature and anyone in management and hospital management that I say is that, if we want to reduce this is, I'm telling you, this is where the system is breaking down. One of the things I said, I was speaking with the CEO of Texas Children's is that, you've made huge advancements in NICU care and your ability to keep babies alive. I think I just saw a study the other day that they're now keeping like 22 weekers alive.
Wow.
But you're doing an excellent job. You're getting them across the door and getting them out, across the threshold. And
Mm-hmm.
but once they're out of your doors, who's there to catch them?
A hundred percent.
This
Yeah.
is the systems in place. Yes, you're sure you have ECI, sure you have, the public school system, and you have, all these things, but there's no one safety net over all of this
Mm-hmm.
that's making sure that these things happen. And sometimes people say, oh, well, that's the PCP's job. PCPs cannot do this. They
Right.
get 5, 10, 15 minutes with you.
Right.
Just going, you heard how long it took me to tell you my daughter's diagnoses.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
a PCP cannot address all of these things and school and,
No.
not even mention psychological
Sure.
issues,
Yeah.
they
And
can't.
listen, no harm, like no beef with the PCP, but you take your daughter into a PCP, they're directing you right out of their office. That is a case that they cannot. What are they going to do for you?
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely needs to fall on like the right people to have the right things happen, and providers know like when and when not to, like refer out and have those tight connections to know who's the right specialty to get you to as well. I mean,
Yeah.
it's playing as a team.
Yeah. I'm very blessed. We have an amazing PCP. She used to work in the hospital as an infectious disease doctor, had 2 kiddos, and decided she wanted to take some time away from the hospital. So she's just, practicing as just a PCP or whatever. But because she knows how and knows the systems and because she did a specialty, she did a fellowship.
Yeah.
So she knows more. So she's able to say, oh, okay, her heart rate was a little high this week, this. Okay, I'm going to connect to these people. But not everybody has that.
Right.
And at the end of the day, she doesn't have the time for it. If
Right.
she knows
Right.
one of my kiddos is coming in, she puts us at her lunch spot like 11:30, so that way she can work through her lunch to see
Mm,
my kiddo,
what
or
a
she does it at
blessing.
the end of the day, which I feel horrible about.
Yeah.
But that's what she does. And so yeah, I'm super blessed. But again, not everybody
Yeah.
has that.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. But thank you for sharing your story about that stuff too, because hopefully someone will hear your story and be like, wow, you know what? Like, I should have more, and they can search. And that's always like, we try to empower, like, if you feel like you're not with that right person to help build your team, like, please go interview other people. Like, trust your mom gut, or trust your dad gut. Like, that's the most important thing you can do. And then you do have to be the squeaky wheel and build your strong team.
I will say the number one thing, if you were to say what's the biggest thing you've done differently with Maggie versus Hannah, with the
Yeah.
12 years in between,
Yeah.
is that I haven't accepted I don't know, and I haven't accepted
Love it.
no.
Yeah. Good.
I Maggie needed some surgery and they told us it couldn't be done for like 4 to 6 weeks, but it needed to be done. They just didn't have the time for it. So we said,
Uh,
okay, we'll get a different opinion.
yeah.
Went somewhere else and got it done in a week.
Love it.
Which I would have never had the confidence to do when Hannah
Yeah.
was a baby.
Yeah.
I felt like I just needed to listen to providers and do what they said. And this is the best place, and they know what they're, and now I go into every single procedure, every single everything. There's been a couple of other procedures that they've suggested for Maggie, and I'm like, what is the outcome? What is our measurable outcome? What are you hoping to see out of this? And then with that information, what are you going to do with it? And they're like, oh, well, not much. I'm like, oh, then we're not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
And I never had that confidence before. And so, I encourage other families that, and if you don't know, ask.
Yeah.
Not,
Yeah.
and not necessarily providers. I get it. I get stage fright sometimes in front of providers, and I'll even say, you know what, let me talk to my husband. I always throw my husband under the bus. I'm like, let me talk to my husband about that, and then I'll get back with you. But really,
Yeah.
what it is, I just need more time to like think it through. And
Sure.
yes, of course, I'm talking to my husband about it, but I need more time to think it through. Or they said something I didn't understand, I need to look it up,
Yeah.
and then I'll get back to them. But I didn't have that confidence when I was younger, and
Yeah.
when Hannah was younger, and I'm so thankful that I do now with Maggie, because I think it's going to be a completely different. Her NICU stay would have been longer. She's been hospitalized twice. Both of those stays would have been longer.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, her surgery would have been put off. She would actually be having
Yeah.
surgery like last week versus she had it in November.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And, you tell your story so you can hopefully empower somebody else. So thank you.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
That,
For sure.
other people can hear and say, okay, she did it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. People always ask, what's your medical background? What's your medical background? None, nothing.
Oh,
I have a degree in
well.
child development.
Yeah. You learn. If you want to learn, you learn, right? And
Yeah.
that's how it's been with a lot of our other guests is they have no background in this, it's just they got thrown into it, and then they do the research to figure out so they can understand the conversations that are being had with the doctors, with the specialists, and just make sure that they're making the right decisions. Yeah.
So I told my husband when we were in the NICU, people would ask me it so much that I just started making up random things. Like I was like, I have a doctorate in philosophy. I have a doctorate in theology. And they're like, what? And I would say like, I would just start saying, and finally our nurses like caught on to what I was doing, and they were like, stop it. And I was like, well, if they're going to ask a dumb question, they're going to get a dumb answer. Because that's my thing is it doesn't matter what my background is in. You should treat every single mother the exact same. You should speak to them the exact same, because I saw in the NICU, our NICU is an open pod NICU. And so everybody's right there. So like their rounds, I can hear everything. My rounds, they can hear everything. And the way they would talk to other parents, where they wouldn't really tell them everything. The parents would ask questions, they wouldn't really answer them. But then they would come to me because they thought I had a medical background, or because they knew that I wasn't going to let them walk away until I got every single question answered. And I knew the plan. Okay, you're doing this lab, and then when it comes back, you're going to do. And so the way they treated me was different. I didn't like that. And so actually one mom that was next to us, they were wanting to move her baby to the cardiac unit because it was a cardiac kid. And so at Texas Children's, they have the NICU, and then they have the cardiac unit. Well, so if she moved to the cardiac unit, she would get her own room. And so she was like, I don't know, why should I do that? Da, 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 da. And so sure enough, the NICU closes down like a couple times a day, and you all have to leave. And everyone, of course, goes out to the Ronald McDonald room to get coffee, right? And I go up to this woman, and I'm like, do it. You want to go to the cardiac unit? You'll get your own room and a bed. And she was like, what? And she was like, why didn't they tell me that? And I'm like, I don't know why they didn't tell you that, but do it. And she goes running back in there, and she was like, now, put in the orders now. They were like, what happened? Like, why? And she was like, nothing. Nothing else, just no reason. I felt like that was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I was sitting right across from her, and the doctor looked over at me, and I was like, I didn't do anything. I didn't do a thing. That fellow was like, I don't believe you.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're also like, you're taking something that is, not desirable, being like in NICU or being in these other things, and like also putting a positive spin on it, like the fact that like you could have like these fun, embracing conversation with your friend when you were there through something that is so intense. It does remind us too that like you are important, like as the caregiver, like we were talking about, it is important to like fill your cup back up, even if that's sitting with your friend that's going through the same stuff, just so you guys can have camaraderie, helping another mom understand the things that they're not telling them because they're not asking as many questions. Like everyone should be treated the same. Like they should have like a standard protocol. Like these are the things that are the most commonly asked questions that you should need to know about. I know you're not thinking about it because you've never been here before, but hey, I'm here to support you. Like of course they want their own room. Come on.
Right? Come on. This poor lady was from like Lubbock, and so she's in Houston, and she's paying for a hotel room. And I was just like,
goodness,
this poor lady, I lived there, so I was able to, drive back and forth. But no,
yeah. Bless you.
Well, so with your wide variety of experiences that you and your family have gone through. What kind of advice would you give other families who are going through a rough diagnosis of any kind with their child, and whether it be mindset or advocacy,
Yeah,
and how to handle that?
a hundred 100% mindset. I always tell people, and even my husband, when we have bad days, it's 1 minute at a time, one step at a time. I had a friend tell me, do the next best thing. You cannot worry about tomorrow. You cannot worry about next week. What is the next best thing? If your child needs fed right now, feed your child. If you need fed right now, feed you.
Yeah.
If you need to step outside and take 5 minutes, step outside and take 5 minutes. It's the next best thing. And that you don't need to try to climb that mountain today. And just take it one step at a time, and then reach out and get that community, because I promise it's going to take such a huge load off, and you don't even realize it.
Yeah.
And when you find that community and you find your people, it changes your world. It opens it up so much more. My kids participate in Miracle League. And then here in Houston, we have Challenger baseball team, and then they participate in horseback riding, and then we have a massive ministry at our church and they're each in their own classroom, and they get to have friends, just that camaraderie and community is just, it's where it's at. We wouldn't survive without it.
For sure. For sure. Oh, I love hearing that. And it does sound like your area has like a lot of like support when you go finding it, which is really great.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. If there's anything else you'd love to leave with the listeners, feel free to do so. If there's a way like to connect or follow, you're more than welcome to share that. But I love having you here.
I don't share a ton on social media, just because of family stuff, but I do share what it's the word I'm looking for. I try to share links and resources and that kind of stuff. And so I'm mostly on Instagram, and my Instagram is That Advocate Mom.
Love it.
And so, I'm a nonprofit disability advocate here in the Houston area. I help families all over Texas. My goal is to help families connect with resources, especially in the state of Texas, navigating Medicaid and how to get Medicaid, and how to get resources and stuff. And so they can always connect with me. And my kids are homeschooled, so I know nothing about the public school system. People always ask me about school stuff, and I'm like, nope, sorry. Can't help you there, but I can connect you with the right people. I can send you in the right direction on how to help you get free help, because that seems to be one of the biggest things that people need help with, navigating the school system. And it's just a mountain I've chose not to climb.
Yeah. I was going to say, actually, it sounds like with what you do, you probably have a lot of resources to connect other caregivers with. So I'm so happy that you shared that. And we'll have to find someone maybe we can bring on here that knows how to navigate the school systems. Because even here in Florida, where we're at, I've definitely had people asking and inquiring, because it's a hard thing to navigate, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of support. So
no,
we'll have to find that person.
Yep, they exist. I know that they do. I just
they're probably so busy.
Don't know them.
Yeah, they're probably so busy they can't come up for air. So we have to go find them. So maybe if someone hears this, reach out so we can share the knowledge. Well, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
Thank y'all. Yeah, thank y'all for doing this. My husband's begged me forever and ever to share and do things, because he's like, this is what people need. And I'm just like, I don't have the time. So I'm so thankful that y'all are doing it.
Yes, I appreciate it. And because I saw that you're, like Maggie was like so young, and I was like, thank you for making the time. Oh my gosh, we're so blessed.
Every opportunity, because like I said, I just think it's so powerful.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we hope you enjoy the rest of your day and have a happy holiday.
Thanks. You too. You too. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Marcia, thank you for naming what so many parents feel but often cannot say. The grief before anything has ever happened, the resilience that grows out of necessity, and the healing that shows up in unexpected ways. Your story reminds us that families are shaped not just by the hardship they face, but by the contentment they cultivate, one step, 1 minute at a time. To every parent navigating anticipatory grief or raising a medically complex child, you are not behind, you are not failing, you are becoming. And as always, you were born for this. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love for you to take one simple step. Share it with a friend, another parent, or a caregiver who might need to know they are not alone in this journey. Make sure you are subscribed so you will never miss an episode. We release new stories every Monday. And if you're looking for more connection, resources, or ways to share your own story, come join us on Instagram at Born for This Stories, or visit our website at bornforthisstories.com.